All right, today we're going to crack open an operational manual, but it's not for some new gadget or piece of software. Nope, it's for the most complex, most powerful, and sometimes most frustrating system you'll ever own, your own mind. We're diving into what's called the Universal Khaeos Protocol. So let's just get right to it. You ever have one of those moments where you feel like there's a glitch in the system? You know, where your own reaction to something just doesn't make any sense, even to you? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're going to look at the source code behind that very glitch. So, what's the root of this problem? The protocol calls it the evolutionary mismatch, and it's a brilliant way to think about it. Imagine this. On one side, you've got your Pleistocene wetware. That's your brain's basic operating system, right? It was designed and coded for a world that was, well, pretty simple. Low variance, scarce resources. But on the other side, you're trying to run that old software in the 21st century datasphere, a nonstop, high-speed storm of information. It's like trying to run the latest video game on a computer from 1995. You're going to get crashes, you're going to get lag. It's a fundamental system incompatibility. Okay, so if we're going to debug this whole thing, we first have to understand the basic rules of the game, the fundamental physics of the mind, if you will. These are the core mechanics you're playing with, whether you realize it or not, every single day. And rule number 1 is all about thermodynamics. Yeah, physics. See, your brain is basically a biological engine, and it's in a constant knockdown, drag-out fight against entropy, which is just a fancy word for disorder or chaos. Its primary mission, its entire job, according to this framework, is to create and maintain order. And it does that by trying to minimize something called free energy. Now, what's free energy? Really, it's just surprise. So, surprise. What does that actually mean for your brain? The protocol has a great term for it, prediction error. It's that jarring moment when reality doesn't line up with what your brain predicted would happen. It's the gap. And every single time there's a mismatch, it generates this error signal. And here's the kicker. Processing that error is work. It's metabolically expensive. It literally drains your energy. It's a tax on your system. And this chart right here just shows you the scale of the problem we're dealing with. It's massive. Look at the cognitive load in our ancestral environment. It's way down there. Now look at the modern world. It's through the roof. Our world today is basically a surprise-generating machine. It just bombards us with novelty, with uncertainty, with prediction error after prediction error. And what's the result? Cognitive overload, system lag, and yeah, eventually, total burnout. Okay, so where are all these weird, automated, glitchy reactions even coming from? The protocol points to a concept you might have heard of, the shadow from Carl Jung. But hold on, we're not talking about some kind of scary inner monster hiding in the dark. No, let's reframe that. Let's think of it as just another player in the game, a predictable, understandable player, called a bounded rational agent. Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The shadow isn't dumb. It's not malicious. It's just outdated. It's playing a high-stakes game with one goal, keep you safe. The problem is, its strategy guide is ancient history. It's bounded, which means its decision-making is limited by the data it has. And that data comes from your childhood, or even from the Pleistocene era. So what happens? It sees a stressful email from your boss and reacts with the same panic, the same fight or flight code as it would to a lion on the savannah. And that massive overreaction? That's what the protocol calls a strategic lag. I know, this might all sound a little bleak, like we're just puppets of our ancient programming, but this is exactly where the protocol gets really, really powerful. Because it doesn't just diagnose the problem, it gives you the solution. It lays out a path to go from being a piece on the board, just reacting to everything, to actually becoming the player. It's the path from what we might call fate to what we can achieve agency. And here it is. This is the key. The whole thing, the entire protocol, really boils down to this single elegant little equation. What it's saying is this. As the time, that's delta t, between something happening and you reacting gets closer and closer to 0, well, that's fate. That's autopilot. But the moment you can introduce a pause, even a millisecond between that stimulus and your response, that's when you create agency. You could almost call this the mathematics of free will. Let's break that down side by side. Look over here at fate. That's the instant automatic reaction, right? It's the shadow's old code running on autopilot. In this mode, you're basically just an object being bounced around by the environment. But now look at agency. This is what happens when you insert that strategic pause. In that tiny little gap, you shift from being the object to being the operator. You get to audit the strategy before you run the program. It's a total game changer.
Okay, so the big question is, how do we actually do that? How do we create that pause? Well, this next part is all about the practical, operational protocols. This is where we learn how to go from being just a player to becoming the game master, or maybe even better, the archivist of our own mind. Let's start with a big one, a classic failure mode that I think we can all relate to: procrastination. The protocol connects this to an old archetype, the pure eternus, the eternal child who never wants to grow up and commit. And the specific bug in the code here, it's called the opportunity cost fallacy. And the way the protocol frames this is just fascinating. It calls procrastination a real option valuation error. Okay, that sounds complicated, but it's not. It's the unconscious mistake of believing that your potential to do something is actually more valuable than doing the thing itself. It's like you're treating your future possibilities like a stock option that, in your mind, never ever expires. You can almost hear the logic, can't you? It's so seductive. It whispers, hey, as long as you don't start that project, your potential to do it perfectly remains infinite. But here's the brutal truth, the fallacy. It completely ignores something from finance called theta decay. In the real world, options have an expiration date. Time is always ticking down. So by not acting, you're not preserving your potential. You're literally letting it expire worthless. All right, let's switch gears and apply some game theory to conflict. Think about any argument you've been in. You have two basic moves: cooperate or defect. Your shadow's default move, its instinct, is always to defect. Why? To protect the ego. But just look at this payoff matrix. If you defect to protect yourself and the other person defects to protect themselves, where do you both end up? Right there in the bottom right corner. Deadlock, rage. It's a lose-lose. It's the worst outcome for everyone involved. And it's what's called a Nash equilibrium of stagnation, a stable state where everyone is miserable. So how do we break out of these loops? How do we escape these traps? The protocol gives us some really concrete tools, or strategic mitigations. 3 of them right here. Number 1, for rage, you use sandboxing. That means you take all that raw energy and you route it into a safe container, like intense exercise where it can burn off without causing any damage. Number 2, for that analysis paralysis that comes with perfectionism, you refactor. You change the code. You switch the goal from perfect to just good enough to get started. And number 3, for anxiety, you use reality calibration. When your threat detector is screaming, you manually input safety data, like taking slow, deep breaths, to prove to the system that it's just a false alarm. And this quote, I think, just sums up the entire philosophy so perfectly. Notice the language. We're not here to fight ourselves. We're not here to destroy these parts of our programming. The goal is not to exercise the shadow. It's to update the strategy. The point is not to cure the glitch. It's to index the variance. It's all about integration. It's about building a smarter, more robust, and more complete system. And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with, a question for you to take into your own life. When you think about the incredibly complex, high-stakes game that is your own mind, what's the one outdated strategy, that one piece of old code that you are still running on autopilot?